As I said on Monday night, we are still in a pandemic, and I appreciate folks who are continuing to wear their mask, get the vaccine for those who are within the phase of the class that can get it. We hope that soon we'll be able to get through our pandemic and hopefully get back to some level of normalcy. Again, I appreciate everyone who is here tonight, and we've got a number of recognitions, and things are continuing to move in our town and very active. And so we've got a full agenda. So with that, again, we will go ahead and begin our meeting. We will start with an invocation by Councilman Paul Hinkle.
Bow our heads, please. Lord, we ask for your countenance, your blessings upon this hallowed meeting this evening, this very important meeting as we do the people's business. We ask that you be with those who are suffering and have suffered and continue to suffer under our pandemic. Bring peace to their situation and healing, and help us as we all heal around the world and in our nation to move on from this pandemic and brighter times. We ask that you guide and direct us in what we say and do and in the decisions we make this evening. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now, would you please recite our Pledge of Allegiance with us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, in your packet, you have your agenda. I would ask if there are any additions or amendments to tonight's agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Mr.
I
Wyatt?
want to move items number 14 through 18 to the consent agenda, please, if that meets you all as approval. I'm sorry, not number 17, but number 14, 15, and 16, and 18. 14, 15, 16, and 18 to the consent agenda, please, if that's all right with you all.
It was 14, 15, 16, and 18.
Yes, sir.
Council, are you agreeable to that amendment? If so, I'd ask for a motion to amend our agenda with the 14, 15, 16, and 18, moving to our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Motion is made. It received a second. Any other question or comment on the agenda? Okay, or the amendment, excuse me. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Now, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is made, received a couple of seconds from a couple of Harrises. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. We will now address our consent items. These are items which include consideration to be routine by the council or have been discussed and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items unless requested by council. We've got some minutes, audit contract, an elevation plan by from the Falls Cove at Lake Norman, a resolution for Henry Young Alexander, and the amendments that was also changed 15, 16, excuse me, 14, 15, 16, and 18. Is there a motion to approve our consent?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
A motion is made to approve the consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made, received a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition likewise? Hearing none, motion passes. Next item on our agenda is recognitions and presentations, and we'll start with a recognition of our Troutman Police Department police officers. Turn that over to Chief Fleming.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm very pleased to be here tonight and to be able to recognize the outstanding performance of a couple of our officers. I want to thank you for affording me a few moments just to be able to recognize them and point out their good works to the town. I'd like to start off with Officer Carrie Baker. Officer Baker graduated BLET in the spring of 2000. In August of that year, he accepted a position with the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. For 8 years, he worked for the Sheriff's Department and worked in the capacities of a bailiff, transport officer, lake patrol, road patrol, and school resource officer. He was a school resource officer for North Iredell High School from 2003 to 2007 and West Iredell Middle School from 2007 to 2008. In July of 2008, Troutman was fortunate enough for him to become an officer with our department. He came as a school resource officer at South Iredell High School. He worked at South Iredell from 2008 to 2016. He continues to serve as the head men's volleyball coach for the Vikings. During his time at South, he implemented the Student of the Day and Staff Member of the Week programs that recognize students and staff for contributions to the school and community, as he encouraged building healthy relationships among students and staff. Baker also became the only officer with the Troutman Police Department to become certified as a bike patrol officer. In July of 2016, Officer Baker made the move to the Career Academy and Technical School, also known as CATS. Since 2016, he has served as the SRO Division Supervisor. He is certified as a Crisis Intervention Instructor through the Crisis Prevention Institute. He has trained many of Iredell Statesville Schools teachers and staff in crisis prevention, intervention, and de-escalation techniques. He also implemented the Student of the Week and Staff Member of the Month programs at CATS. On January 20th, 2021, Officer Baker was officially promoted to the rank of Sergeant of the SRO Division and supervises the SROs at South Iredell High School and Troutman Middle School. During his 21 career in law enforcement, he has earned many certifications and attended various conferences and trainings to ensure that he is always learning and improving himself as a law enforcement officer. He continues to build and maintain good working relationships with students, staff, parents, and stakeholders throughout the Iredell Statesville schools within the town of Troutman and in law enforcement. In the past almost year and a half as I've been chief, I've observed Sergeant Baker as he serves as senior SRO. He has demonstrated the ability to delegate, which results in tasks being completed efficiently and thoroughly in a timely manner. He is respected by not only his officers, but by the staff and students in our schools. He has a true servant's heart, which I believe is the cornerstone in the law enforcement profession. For 4 years, Baker has supervised the SRO program with great success. His promotion to the rank of sergeant was way past due. I expect Sergeant Baker to continue to thrive in this position. I'd like to say congratulations to Sergeant Baker. The next officer I'd like to recognize is Officer Justin Dagenhart. Officer Dagenhart has recently been awarded the School Resource Officer Certificate Program certification. I would like to read the letter that was issued from the North Carolina Justice Academy. It says, Chief Fleming, it is my pleasure to announce that Officer Justin Dagenhart has successfully completed the North Carolina Justice Academy School Resource Officer Certification Program. Officer Dagenhart has demonstrated his pledge as a school resource officer by dedicating himself to making the schools safer for our children and the staff they serve. Officer Dagenhart successfully completed the program with over 400 hours of required training. It was a pleasure having Officer Dagenhart in our program, and I am proud to inform you that he is the 299th participant to complete our program since its inception in 2002. Officer Dagenhart has been employed with the Troutman Police Department since 2007. He has held the positions of patrol officer, traffic safety officer, patrol sergeant, and is currently the school resource officer at South Iredell High School. He has many certifications, including his intermediate and advanced law enforcement certificate through the North Carolina Criminal Justice Education and Training Commission. He has also completed the traffic certificate program through the North Carolina Justice Academy. This includes traffic collision reconstruction. He continues to grow his education through many training opportunities through the Troutman Police Department and the North Carolina Justice Academy. In order to be a recipient of the School Resource Officer Certificate, the School Resource Officer Certificate Program is designed specifically for school resource officers who have a desire to increase their training experiences and credentials. The course selected for the program recognizes that SRO is often required to perform traditional patrol responsibilities in addition to their school-related duties. The total time requirement is a minimum of 400 class hours, and this is to include 80 hours of core classes, which consist of 3 classes, which is School Resource Officer Training, School Resource Officer Ethics, and any law-based course. All coursework must have been completed no more than 10 years prior to the conferment of the certification, and his annual in-service training does not count. He cannot use that toward the 400 hours. Individuals have to be a sworn member of a law enforcement agency, hold at least a basic level certificate in law enforcement, and must be a current or former school resource officer. So at this time, I'd like to present to Officer Justin Dagenhart, the State of North Carolina Department of Justice, North Carolina Justice Academy, issues this certificate, thereby certifying that Justin L. Dagenhart has completed the prescribed specialized hours in the School Resource Officer Certificate Program, dated the 1st of September, 2020. Justin, before you, one other thing I would like to mention before I step away from the podium is Sergeant Baker sent me an email the other day, and I just thought this was so appropriate. South Iredell High School has the Teacher of the Week and Staff Member of the Week, and for the week of January 11th through 15th, Officer Devin Bentley and Officer Dagenhart were selected as the staff members of the week. In order to be selected for this, you have to be nominated and voted on by the students. And I think that shows a huge impact that these officers are making inside our schools, that they're building that rapport with the students, that they thought highly enough of them that they would nominate them and select them for this recognition. So congratulations to Dagenhart and Thank you.
Thank you, all the officers. Officer Dagenhart and Baker both do an outstanding job. From the council, we appreciate what you all continue to do to represent both the town and the safety of our schools. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is a presentation of a resolution 0221 titled "A Resolution Recognizing Henry Alexander Young as an Eagle Scout Recipient." And I have the resolution in front of me and a smiling face on the screen. I will read it as follows. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America is a vital force in the development of youth through its many programs, which encourages the ability of its members to do things for themselves and especially for others. And whereas one of the major objectives in the scouting program is the development, citizenship, and character through community involvement, and in addition to working for citizenship merit badges, Scouts are encouraged to participate in community service projects. And whereas Henry Alexander Young, as a member of the Statesville Troop 348 of the Boy Scouts of America, sponsored by Wesley Memorial United Methodist Church, has displayed character exceptional project management and construction, refurbishment, and maintenance of ornamental floral beds at Troutman ESC Park, located at 338 North Avenue. And whereas this project is of great value regarding staff and resources to the town of Troutman and beautifies our facility for the residents and citizens of the greater Troutman community who frequent our ESC Park. And whereas Henry Alexander Young has not only proven himself to be an outstanding member of the Boy Scouts of America, but has attained the highest honor bestowed on a Scout, the Eagle Scout Award, a distinction that will follow him throughout his life and will be a beacon to others of the leadership, quality, and commitment of this young man, that this young man has shown. Now therefore, be it resolved, I, T. Ross Young, Mayor and the Town Council of the Town of Troutman, do hereby recognize and commend Eagle Scout recipient Henry Alexander Young and thank him for his contributions to the betterment of our town. I witnessed this day, February 11th, 2021. I'll ask you to come up and I'll present this to you. Welcome. You got an hour to speak if you'd like.
So we got two youngs tonight. Yeah, two youngs. Three, yeah.
Thank you for letting me work on the ESC gardens. It's been one of the most. It's been a really interesting process. I really enjoy the fact that I've been able to take an area and just make it. I really appreciate the fact that I've been able to take the area and just like put flowers there and make it a beautiful part, section of the park. And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And I appreciate his parents being here tonight. Understand we've got one of our newest district court judges here, Mr. Rob Young. We appreciate you coming and raising an outstanding young man. So you and his bride there, we appreciate all that you do for our community and being part of being part of our town. So thank you so much.
And thank you.
Council, the next item on our agenda is public comments. The public is invited to address the town council with comments. Excuse me. I got one more. Actually, I got several more. Got 3 agendas here, so I apologize for that. The next item on the agenda, I'm still up, is a presentation of a proclamation 0102 titled A Proclamation Proclaiming February as Black History Month. So let me read this proclamation as well. Whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, social, and political development. And in 1915, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, noted black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association of Study of Negro Life and History, which was later renamed the Association of the Study of African American Life and History. And Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week, February 12, 1926, and for many years, the second week of February, chosen so as to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, was celebrated by African Americans in the United States. And in 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, Black History Week was expanded and became established as Black History Month and is now celebrated all over North America. And the observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. And whereas the town of Troutman is proud to honor the history and contributions of Black African Americans in our community and continues to work toward becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens are respected and recognized for their contributions and potential contributions to our community, state, nation, and the world. Now therefore, I, T. Ross Young, Mayor, Town of Troutman, do hereby proclaim February as Black History Month and encourage all citizens to celebrate our diverse heritage, culture, and continue in efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for us all. Signed this February 11th, 2021. And I've got, next item on the agenda is recognition and presentation of certificates. I believe Mr. Wyatt.
Yes, sir. At this time, Mr. Mayor, the first one we have up is, we would like to recognize you, Mr. Mayor. And before I read the certificate, a few words, if you all will indulge us. We would like to recognize you not only as being born and raised in the Troutman area, and for all that you have done to the community. Just a few things to say, other than being a husband and a father, being a graduate of elementary school, the middle school, and South Iredale High School here. You all have also been very active in the community. I don't have a clue why you went to UNC Charlotte, but and you're a proud 49er, and of course on the Board of Trustees and serve them well, and they're proud to have you there. Vice President of Government Affairs with Hayes America professionally, and they enjoy your services and want you to grow with the company. And of course, because of that, and your mother, as sweet as she is, and has made you work diligently within the community, and the volunteer hours that has grown within the community. Your service in the community has grown throughout, and the other things that you volunteer in, active in the church. You have also shown, and as was quoted last year in an article, of saying, as you recognize the advocacy of leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, that you learned early on, one of the ways that you like to honor him and others like him was to give back into the community for people like him who helped in what he did to pave the way for equal rights for a lot in America. Is the best way to do that, to honor him and what he did, was by serving the community in various ways. And you have been an example for a lot to follow. And we as staff, when we was discussing not only people that are our role models, but especially at this time for Black History Month, you being the first mayor in Iredell County's history of African American descent, we thought it'd be an appropriate time to recognize you as such. But the plaque says, Certificate of Recognition in Honor and Celebration of Black History Month, the Troutman Town Council, town staff, town residents, the greater Troutman community hereby recognizes T. Ross W. Young Jr. for his dedication and continuous efforts of encouraging others and working toward building a better community in which all citizens are respected and recognized for their contributions and for being an example for future generations.
while Duck takes his seat, I never do this for recognition. I appreciate the honor and recognition by the staff and our community. It did come as a surprise when you said this on Monday, but again, I really appreciate it. This is home, and I will always know that and remember that. So that's why I serve here. So thank you.
Yes, sir. And I apologize to all of those that's listening to us on the internet. Emily just scolded me. They couldn't hear me because I had the mask on, and I apologize. For all in the room, you got to hear it, but she asked me to repeat all that, and I'm afraid I would butcher it up. And I don't have it wrote down, so I apologize, Mr. Mayor, I apologize.
Let me say, that's a rare occasion to hear people say they didn't hear Doug.
That's right.
The next one that we have, of course, is our newest council member, and Felina, Council Lady Harris, I'm sorry. I have known of you as for a while, and I apologize, I don't know you as well as I know our mayor, but I do know of you, and I apologize. What I've got to say is not as lengthy as what I had to say about our mayor, but I do have some things that are appropriate to say of you. We appreciate you being our first African-American lady to serve on Troutman's Town Council, and it being Black History Month, of course it's appropriate for us to recognize you and honor you for being that. You have, of course, as I was eating at Pfeiffer's a couple weeks ago, they boasted about your involvement in the Circle of Giving, which is a group up there that helps individuals and families that's dealing with poverty, and that you all get together several times a year for various fundraisers to help without our communities, not only in Troutman, but surrounding area, and was very proud of the fact in your works there. Of course, Troutman this past year, as most everybody knows, recognized you for your service to the community of Troutman, because last year when COVID first struck, the schools went out, and there was a need for a lot of children that was not getting fed appropriately, and Felina, you took it upon yourself, and it was pulling on your heartstrings to make sure that these people got fed. And as you are noted as saying, your village, your village, your village. And you reached out to a lot of folks, and one of our staff here, Emily Watson, has been in your village for a while, as we know. And you reached out to one of the churches here, and they helped, as you have a lot of village folks there that are acquaintances of yours, and got together and made sure that a lot of children got to eat meals when there was not a plan that was readily available. And for that, the town appropriately recognized you, whether it be some folks donating $5 because that's what they could afford, or others donating their time because that's what they could afford. And it went out and made sure that a lot of people could eat. But that just goes to show your character in making sure that a need was filled in this community, and that is greatly appreciated. Going back to what I had said about T. Ross earlier, it goes to show that also your family raised you, and that a lot of times it's not what we do when show is the spotlight's on us, it's what we do every day that sets us apart in our community. And it goes back to also say what the leaders before us have done that defines us as to what kind of persons we are. And for that, we need to honor you at this point in time in our lives, because it does show what kind of person you are. You also serve on the board of directors for Iredell Christian Ministries. And again, that just goes to show that what you believe in and is an example for others to follow. Of course, you're a mother and a wife, and of course, you serve professionally for Mecklenburg County. No offense to Mecklenburg, but Iredell County has better job opportunities, I'm just saying. But if you must travel south to work with strangers down there, then that's your choice. But you've had a wonderful career down there. We're just glad that you choose to volunteer your time to serve Troutman and our communities up here. The certificate reads, Certificate of Recognition in Honor and Celebration of Black History Month. The Mayor, Troutman Town Council, town staff, town residents, and the greater Troutman community hereby recognize Felina L. Harris, for her continued work and contributions to our community, along with her commitment to equality and building an inclusive community where all citizens are mutually respected, recognized, and appreciated. The next one we have is a little more personal than even you two. It goes back to my childhood, and these ladies go back to my childhood as well. Way back, shortly after I got my nickname that most of you all know that I have, we had a police chief here in Troutman. JC is what most of us called him, but his official name was Johnny Cavan. I never knew that until in my adulthood, but JC was an African American. Back in those days, that title was not floated around in the late 70s, early 80s too much, but he was a police chief here in Troutman, lived just off of Wagner Street now, or Perth Road, and he raised two daughters who are here with us this evening, Denise and Benita, and he had a son that was also Johnny, as we called him, but in his spare time he coached baseball. Prior to becoming a police chief here, Johnny, or JC up there, as you all see his picture, and he was proud in his uniform, served in the military and the Army, and he was also a pro baseball player, having played in Europe as a baseball player, and he come back, and there's a picture of Johnny, and as a police officer retired, and Denise there left, who also become a police officer and was the first female or first African American female? Both. She knocked out two birds with one stone. Statesville Police Department, and was, of course, became the first detective up there at Statesville Police Department as well. But Johnny also went into the military, following his dad's footsteps. But in JC coaching us ruffians back then, and baseball players, when all of you all on council remember the Fraternal Order Police sponsoring the splash pad back here last fall, but that's part of the reason that I wound up with the FOP and in law enforcement. Was J.C. Walker was one of those people that we were Troutman FOP baseball team back in those days, and he was proud of the fact that the FOP took time to sponsor us back then and talk to us kids about that. But J.C. spent a lot of time and effort with us back in those days. And a lot of times the police department, for Paul Hinkle that remembers back in those days, JC worked a whole lot of hours, and there was not such much thing back then as overtime or comp time. They had a handful of officers, and he wound up handling a whole lot of those calls without having to have 2 and 3 and 4 deep and rotating out. So JC worked a lot of those, and then would come out and coach us with little to no sleep on top of it. So he went out of his way to make sure that we got coached, and there was not a whole lot of excuses about it. So he was definitely a great coach to us and helped a lot of us out back in those days. And Denise, of course, followed her dad's footsteps, as did Johnny. And when we mentioned that on Facebook page the other day, we apologized for Benita that we didn't say that she did any wonderful things, but she works for a doctor's office in Statesville, and she is a wonderful lady too. She just didn't decide to be in the law enforcement career that her siblings did. For whatever reason, she didn't want to throw down and beat nobody up. That was just, not saying Denise did, but she did. She did whip people occasionally. I remember. But the certificate goes on to say, and before I move to the certificate, even though we recognize our mayor and Felina for being deal breakers and being the first at this day and time and theirs, I want you all to think for a moment. Being a black police chief back in the 70s, because that was the terminology back then. It was not African American, it was black. Police chief in the 70s. This town had a whole lot of forethought back then, and I'm proud of what Troutman did back then, and that says a whole lot about our town and our history and where we came from. Troutman's never been afraid to be the first to do a whole lot of things, and for that I'm tickled of our town and our history and our heritage. But the certificate goes on to say, in honor and celebration of Black History Month, the mayor, Troutman Town Council, town staff, town residents, and the greater Troutman community hereby recognize the late Johnny Cavan, J.C. Walker, for his service to the town of Troutman to create a safe community as patrol officer and chief, for his leadership as coach and mentor to countless families and children, and his selfless sacrifice in serving his country in the United States military. His life, work, and service are vast and long-standing, and we honor him for his impact to our community. Y'all are welcome to say anything you would like.
Just on behalf of my family,
Come right here to a microphone, because I'd like to hear you on that.
on behalf of my family, and like I said, I'm gonna try to keep it short and hold it together, because I know my daddy's looking down on me right now. I just thank you all for this, and so fitting, Black History Month, but I look around Troutman, and like you said, Mr. Young, this is home. I may do a lot of work in Raleigh, a lot of work in Washington, D.C., but there's no place like Troutman, North Carolina. I tell people that all the time. We may not be big on the map, but we're big in our hearts. And I will tell you, my father, his dream was for it to be a library. The stories he used to come, he says, I want a library for these kids and a park. And I know he's just smiling. That's why I think it's raining so much right now, because his heart is as heavy as mine is tonight. Thank you all so much.
And like, I will always remember him as Duck. I can't say Ronald, but like Ronald said, JC was a lot to a lot of people. He was a big man with a big heart. He taught us to love everybody and to treat everybody the way we wanted to be treated. He also instilled in us to do our best. And I remember a lot of long conversations with you and Johnny, me sitting in the back seat laughing at y'all because you dropped a ball out in the outfield or you didn't do your best work. He always wanted the best, for us to do the best. He always taught us, whatever you are, be the very best. No, I didn't go into law enforcement. I was mama's girl, I was daddy's girl, mama's world. I went into the medical profession. I was a teacher assistant for 20 years for the Iredell Statesville schools. And then I went back to school and got my degree in medical assisting, and now I work for the endocrinologist in Statesville. I'm the referral coordinator, and I work up front as well. So I see these people, and I take care of people. And I think of my daddy when he was sick, how I was always afraid that the nurses were hurting him. And I had to overcome that to actually now look at him and I think, Daddy, I can actually give a shot now. I can see someone getting blood taken away from them. But I just want to say from the bottom of our family's hearts, thank you to all of you for this opportunity to recognize. Everybody called him JC, but I just knew him, like I said on Facebook, as my daddy. He's a big man with a big heart, and we thank you for honoring him after a long time overdue. But we just thank you for what you're doing here in Troutman and making Troutman a wonderful place to be. Thank you.
I would start to ask for some more stories, Benita. But we'll save that for another day. I did go to school with Benita, so probably wouldn't became mayor had she went out and talked to people. But her father actually is one of the role models and reasons why I entered public service in my town. So I didn't know him personally. I read about him and respected him and who he was. And so I appreciate the service that the family was able to provide for our community, especially during that time, and continue to do so for several years. And so, again, we appreciate that, and just want to say thank you for lending him to our community.
Mr. Mayor, may I just say, being on the council at the time, that JC was hired and eventually appointed police chief. He was a fine example of a good, decent human being and a police officer. And it was at a time, as Doug said, that you didn't know what kind of reaction you were going to get in a small southern town. And we got a very positive, supportive reaction from the townspeople. And JC did not let us down. He made us all proud. And I look back at this, and when Doug mentioned that we were honoring him tonight, it brought back a lot of fond memories. I rode around with him a few times on patrol. That was back when we were a little more informal, and he would just ride by one night and say he wanted to go on patrol with me, and I'd ride around with him for a little bit. And enjoyed the conversations and getting to know him even more so. And as the mayor said, thank you for allowing him to and sharing him with the town for a while, and I just want you to know that I have the utmost respect for him and his memory. And thank you very much for sharing him with the town.
When we went and visited Mary the other day to try to find some pictures of JC, she made mention that she still liked seeing officers come by, and they were more than welcome. And Denise said, please have our officers to come by, and even if they just turned around in the driveway, that meant so much for her mom and their family, that if officers would just turn around in the driveway. She does leave her door open when it's warm days to see outside. But we enjoyed our visit with Mary, and police is, of course, is family oriented to them, but it was great to visit with Mary, and she has mine and Emily's numbers if she needs anything. But
Bless you.
I'd like to add that Sue Brown called me, who's Mary Lois' best friend, and told me that she told me all about him. She said, I know I wasn't here then, and she said their family described him as the salt of the earth. That's how they described him. But she wanted to let me know about him.
Thank you.
thank you, ladies, for coming.
The next item on our agenda is a proclamation declaring February 22nd as Supermarket Employee Day. And I'll read the proclamation as follows. Whereas there are nearly 6 million supermarket employees in the United States, and locally there are 162 food retail jobs that generate incredible economic activity in our town, supermarket employees provide all Americans with access to safe, healthy, and affordable food. Whereas supermarket employees work to enhance the health and well-being of each customer, and whereas supermarket employees contribute and volunteer countless hours in their communities, and whereas supermarket employees face unprecedented challenges keeping grocery shelves stocked during the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas supermarket employees have continued to meet and exceed these challenges while displaying courage, compassion, dedication, and leadership, as well as exemplifying customer service and community outreach. And whereas the need for supermarket employees is greater than ever because of current and growing consumer demands, as well as their reputation for excellence. I now, therefore, hereby, T. Ross Young, sign this proclamation, do hereby proclaim February 22nd, 2001 as Supermarket Employee Day, and ask all citizens to join in honoring our supermarket heroes in our community. And I know we have our outstanding leadership from our local food line here, and I'd like to present them with this plaque.
So first off, I'd really like to thank everybody for recognizing us, and it's only fitting that February 22nd is my birthday. So
Oh, happy birthday, Barry.
telling Duff that it's my birthday, so it must be meant to be.
With the birthday cake.
Absolutely, yeah. So for me, 2020 was largely different than any other year in grocery retail. And for one, I just want to say I appreciate the town of Troutman, the community for giving us very much needed feedback on what their new norm should look like and what that expectation is for us inside of our building. As we tried to figure it out quickly, there were some bumps along the way, understanding what I guess the demand would be to be a grocery retailer. And the town has showed overwhelming support to us and to my staff, and we have people like yourselves and people like the people in the town that really make our job worth doing. I mean, sometime through 2020, we were at a point where we just didn't know which way is the right way to go, and we were getting the feedback that was telling us, hey, you were doing the right things. We feel safe shopping in your store. You have people cleaning around the clock, and that means a lot to us, and thank you for doing what you're doing. So on behalf of Food Line and Troutman, my assistant Ernie is here with me today. We greatly appreciate this honor, and I thank you guys very much.
Thank you. I would say that Barry and Ernie, you guys do a great job, and we appreciate what you've done. You're on the front lines, and since the 1st of March, as this pandemic has continued, and people have needed food, you've supported it by donating and making sure that the shelves were as full as they could be. I have a little bit of an inside track in terms of making sure that knowing that the supply chain was strained for some time, but you all did a great job locally, and we really appreciate that. And make sure you let the staff know. We appreciate what they've done as well. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
So the next item, if I'm correct, Ms. Williams, is public comment. Thank you so much. Um, The public comment is invited to address the council with comments or concerns. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. However, as folks know, we are again still under the Governor's March 30th, 2020 State of Emergency Ordinance, which has been amended over time, but again, we are still under a executive order. Public comments can be received by mail here at the town hall, or they can be emailed to our town clerk, Kim Davis, or live stream chat. And I'll ask at this time, Ms. Davis, did we get any emails?
I did not.
Okay. Mr. Paxton IT, any live chat? Thank you. Okay. The room is empty. That will take us to our next item on the agenda, which is our Troutman alternative study. I believe Mr. Wells will handle this.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to bring the Troutman alternative study to the board tonight for their consideration. Approximately 2 years ago, this study was launched by the town of Troutman with the participation and involvement of a fairly large and diverse group of citizens serving as an advisory committee. Here, lo and behold, 2 years later, despite the pandemic and several other obstacles, we have managed to reach closure on this study and want to present it to you tonight. We're going to try something a little bit different here. I'd like to get Mike Rutkowski, who is the Stantec coordinator for this, on our telephone, and he will be doing the audio and will be presenting the video to you with his PowerPoint here tonight. So if you bear with me for a few seconds, I'd like to get him on the conference line here, and we can be off to the races. Okay, and we have slide number 1 up on the screen, so it's all yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm hoping that I'm to give you a little bit of background on the project, but slide number 1, just thanks for, we're going to kind of walk through in about 15 minutes and progress through here, and then open it up to questions if you have any. I do want to recognize a few folks in the council, previous council, former council folks, Dan Hoffman and Paul Bryant. They were part of that committee that Danny alluded to earlier, and a number of folks off your planning and zoning board as well, including Randy Farmer, Mark Taylor, Leighton Getzinger, and a number of other folks, Daryl, and of course, Mayor Young. Your participation was greatly appreciated towards the end of the project as well. So let's go into slide 2 and really talk about the history of the project. And of course, it all stems from the TIP project R2522, right? That was part of it, as well as the Southwest Bypass that was memorialized on your previous projects list. And so we went through a kind of an alternatives analysis to take a look at different issues related to that bypass. And of course, we looked at environmental constraints, we looked at impacts to property, takings, and the like. So that was all part of the analysis process. So slide 3, I really want to talk a little bit about the recommendations moving forward. That's what Jonathan wanted me to do. And as you know, 2522, the TIP project that NCDOT has, it's kind of on hold, obviously, because of the funding over-programming and the drawbacks in the funding program. But hopefully they'll come back into line. But at the same token, too, I don't think everybody's totally on board and understanding what that design will look like or the level of impacts that are going to happen with that. So slide 3 is really about the process, right? How do we start, man? It really took about 10 months, the entire process, but we have been on hold for the past year. And so it started out with a lot of due diligence, that first phase there with the committee kickoff meeting. We had probably 7 or 8 committee meetings, did a lot of due diligence, data collection, looking at traffic and safety issues and the like. And then we had a couple big events. One was that project symposium that we had at the community center. That was really well received. We had well over 100 participants there. And then we had a 2 or 2.5 day design workshop. That's also known as a charrette, that middle third phase, if you will. And we were housed right where you're sitting right there. And actually did a lot of design, engineers, landscape architects, planners, all under one roof, designing out the ideas. And then finally, with a final design workshop, open house, and then the draft report. So that was the final phase. So we're at the end. This is the last presentation. We did one a few weeks back with the Planning and Zoning Board, which was well received as well. So slide 5 kind of gives you a snapshot of some of those action stops. Of course, there's Randy back there, there's Paul back there, and the bottom right-hand corner really highlights that very active project open house or symposium. And again, I hope most of you have attended that. If not, you really missed the opportunity to see a very collaborative and open process. But it's very well received, and lots of good back and forth about opinions about what to do and how to move forward. Slide 6 is just another shot of the committee, and a lot of smiling faces on there. But we worked, we rolled our sleeves up and really tried to understand the trade-offs and understand what it is that will make this project successful, and what do we need to hone in on. And we took some time really to take a look at the bypass itself. It's been on the books since 1985. We looked at impacts, we looked at traffic, we looked at diversion of traffic. We also looked at several other, up to 5 alternatives looking forward. Fixing existing roads, building another bypass to the east of I-77. But one of them we looked at was the extension of Main Street improvements, really heading south all the way to I-77 interchange there. And that was one that was preferred. We did an evaluation process, and that's the one that was really preferred by the committee as well as the public at large, because we have a number of surveys that we instituted. Slide 7 is really that first step. We took a look at that segment. Let me make sure I can open this up here. That segment really from the tail end of where the TIP 2025-22, that project that's currently on hold, we started there. And you may recall that starts and ends at Cedar Lane. And we went from Cedar Lane all the way down. If you look north to south, it's basically going east to west on your map, those two maps there, all the way from Cedar Lane all the way south to the interchange. So slide 8 is basically looking at how do we chop this up, this corridor. And so from Eastway Drive to Appliance Avenue, we're really looking at a widening project. Right now it's 2-lane road, but we're widening that thing out because of the traffic and expected amount of growth in that area to 4-lane divided with a 10-foot side path to allow folks to walk, to run, to ride their bike, to get some exercise all the way down there to the commercial area and the light industrial area. And so 4-lane divided with pockets of median, not a continuous median, but pockets. When we did this and looked at the existing right-of-way, we actually stayed, for the most part, within the current right-of-way. We slipped out a little bit in short segments, but for the most part, we did a good job of staying within there. Now, the segment on the north segment from Eastway Drive to Cedar Lane, as you well know, is very narrow. It's around 55 feet of right-of-way, and so we didn't want to go beyond that. And if we did, we wanted to limit that. So you recommended at that point a 2-lane divided, a 3-lane section like you're seeing here with sidewalks on both sides, predominantly staying within the current right-of-way. There's only 3 areas that we would put in small retaining walls, maybe 3 to 5 feet of retaining walls to protect adjacent property. So slide 9 actually is that plan view. Looking down, we'll start from the north and then we'll head back to the south. But you'll see here on the left side of your graph there, that's Cedar Lane. That's the end point, or the starting point, if you will, of that TIP project, the one with the peanut that we showed earlier. And so we started there, and we worked our way south. So these concept designs are actually showing you about 20% design AutoCAD level of detail to show you the physical imprint, the physical footprint of that improvement. And so looking at that more detail, you can see this is 2 lanes divided in very small segments where we're putting in pocket medians, but predominantly it is a 3-lane cross-section that'll allow that. Now, we're hoping that Eastway will carry some of the other remaining traffic that goes through and into the town of Troutman. Slide 10 is, as we head south, we really wanted to celebrate that awkward space. It's the space that really separates South Eastway Drive from Main Street. And it's really a forgotten triangle because there's not much, a whole lot you can do there. Well, we would highly recommend using that as kind of a community park or a gateway park and relocate your depot, which is going to be removed, put parking in there and really make it an active park. It could be for outside festivals, it could be for live music, it could be for yoga in the park, but really celebrating coming into the town of Troutman. And of course, we did recommend a gateway roundabout right there to come in. And honestly, that's probably the best location for a roundabout because it slows folks down before they come into your community. It's the best traffic calming device you can use because no one's blasting through a roundabout more than 15 or 20 miles an hour. So it's that gateway. It introduces folks from the 4-lane divided boulevard into a very slow. They can expect people. They can expect more pedestrians. It's really the proper segue into the town proper itself. Slide 11 is the next segment of the concept design. It's from Autoleaf Road all the way down to Kerrigan Road, okay? And that's where, from that roundabout, that's where we transition to the 4-lane divided or 5-lane segment with pockets of median in there. You'll also notice that we are extending multi-use paths starting, along the Eastway Drive, and you can see it on the north side of, I guess really it's the west side of or the east side of Main Street, but on the figure, it's on the north side, you can see there. And it's that 10-foot multi-use path that would allow people that want to get around by 2 feet or 2 wheels or a scooter, if you will, along that corridor. And then you'll also see areas like Collector Street, that black dashed line on the north side. One of the main problems in your entire community is the lack of connectivity. And so we had a number of recommendations in the report, way even outside of Main Street, but including this area here, where we wanted to connect up 2-lane Collector Street so that when development comes in, they would be responsible for building those Collector Streets. You have a lot of development that goes in and out of Main Street with one way in and one way out, and that's really going to degrade Main Street itself. And so this is kind of what it looks like. Slide 11 really kind of shows you that street level perspective. This is South Main Street looking north, so I'm looking towards Cedar Lane from Autumn Leaf Road. And so you can see that pocket median, 2 lanes there. You can see before the top right corner, the existing photo, and then down below, curb and gutter, cleaning it up nice, pedestrian level lighting, sidewalks on both sides. Slide 13 is the next segment, the third segment heading south. It goes from Royal Oaks or Kerrigan all the way down to Houston Road with the realignment that we have of Fowler House Loop there. And so what you're looking at here basically is a continuation of the 4-lane divided or 5-lane segment with a multi-use path on the north side of that figure. You're also seeing continuation of collector street connections that would be built primarily by the development community. And so a nice streetscape as people come in through this area. Slide 14 gives you kind of that driving perspective heading south on Main Street, looking south from Oswald Amity Road right there. So on the left side of the figure, you can see that 10-foot multi-use path. It's separated with a planting strip, pedestrian level lighting. We're also encouraging banners to be incorporated that celebrates the town of Troutman, and then shade trees along the corridor. Slide 15, and bear with me, I only have a few more slides, but slide 15 is your last segment of concept design. It's the segment that goes from Houston all the way down through Alliance Avenue and some of the commercial development down there, the retail, the restaurants. And one of the main things here is really doing a redesign. Number one, relocating the Fowler House Loop. That's moving ahead. That's a division project. But number two, really doing a better job of redesigning this interchange. This interchange is functionally obsolete, and a lot of folks have complained about the weave problem with the loops that go back side by side in the morning and then returning home in the afternoon. We would highly recommend that you eliminate that red ramp going northbound on I-77 and put the ramp on the other side. This would dictate that we'd have to expand an existing bridge on I-77, but we can widen that or put another separate structure in there. It can be engineered, and we know it can be built. But you also see the level of streetscape with street trees, the median, we would plant the median, and really be a nice welcoming folks that are coming in and visitors coming into Troutman. Slide 16, and really this is your last slide. All right, you're going to ask the question, how much does it cost? So we're looking at 2.7 or 2.8 miles of improvements with gateway, with roadway, a roundabout, and really widening to 4-lane divided and doing all the wonderful side path and multi-use path. The total cost is $23 million. Don't be alarmed, because the thing that we haven't included in there is right-of-way. Right-of-way is very limited. Remember, we're squeezing it down so we don't take a whole lot of right-of-way. This cost is less than half or a third of the cost of TIP 2025-22. So we're saving a tremendous amount of money because we're not taking a whole lot of property. Now, you can look and slice this up any way you want it. The good news about it, when we're retrofitting a road like this, Main Street, we can do this in stages. You can do intersection treatment. You can do a roundabout today. you can go back and do a segment of widening. You could do streetscape improvements, or you could do the multi-use path, and it doesn't have to all be done at one time. So slide 17, I'm just going to stop there and see if there's any questions that we have, but there's a lot more information, great report online, sent through a number of revisions, but yeah, this has been an exciting process for you folks, and I'm hoping that you can move forward with some of the implementation structure and some of the action plan items as well. So be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions for Mike on the study, or any of the members who are part of the study? I guess that would just be me right now. So any questions on the study? Okay. Any slides folks need to go back and look at? Okay. I tell you that I would say I appreciate the participation of both citizens as well as the council members and planning and zoning and all the other participants who worked on the study. Mike, you led the community well in making sure that voices were heard, and it really is something that we can look forward to, and a lot of the work that we can start, as you stated in your last few comments, that we can start looking at doing now. And so again, I appreciate the time that you and the Stantec team did to lead us through this work. So it is the next phase of our transportation project, and some things that we can really begin to advocate for and save for and plan for and do. So hopefully we can get this moving. So
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and council members as well. Thanks again.
thank you. Jonathan, is there any action that needs to be taken on this?
If you don't mind, Mayor, if no one has any other comments for questions for Mike, I just want to disconnect him.
I think he's already
he's
disconnected.
disconnected.
Okay, good. One regret I have in this whole process is I was brought in, of course, at the tail end of it, and I wasn't privy to the main body of work. I did speak over a number of months with a number of people who were involved in this, and I think to a person, they've all said it was an exciting process, it was inclusive, it was community-oriented and community-based, and again, I'm feeling a little regretful that I wasn't part of it, because it did sound like it was kind of an exciting project and process. I, for a long time, have been an advocate of saying if you trust the process, you have to trust the outcome. I felt comfortable enough after speaking with numerous people about the process that it made me feel comfortable about the product and the outcome. After we had a huddle up with Mike and the Stantec folks around Thanksgiving time, I believe it was, and the purpose of that discussion was to devise a strategy to put this back on the track and somehow get it across the finish line under these very challenging circumstances. At the time, we felt that it was never too late to obtain additional public sentiment. Staff did put this on the town website and got word out through local media that it was available for viewing on the website, and in fact people were welcome to provide comments through the website with regard to the study. We did get about 3 comments, not a huge number of comments, but for the most part, they were complimentary. One commenter, for instance, made specific reference to the importance of bicycle and pedestrian facilities as a critical component of this. Another commenter urged and encouraged us to use technology such as Zoom and comparable products to advance this towards the finish line and across the finish line, and of course that in part prompted us to do so. So I don't think there was a lack of public input and valuable feedback as part of this whole process. One caution that I gave to the Planning and Zoning Board last month when they had this on their agenda, and I'll share it with you tonight, is I think it would be premature to adopt this as a amendment to the town's strategic comprehensive plan. I don't think that was the initial intent of the study, and most certainly the result or the outcome of the study isn't, in my professional opinion, the right shape, size, and color to be an amendment to the comprehensive plan, the strategic plan. The other reason I'm recommending against it is that the process that we followed, had we wanted that to be an outcome, might have been a little bit different than it was. I think a reasonable action for the board to take, in my opinion, and I put together some potential wording here that isn't inconsistent with the outcome of the discussion at Planning and Zoning, to recommend that the document be taken before I'm reading the Planning and Board recommendation. Accepting the Troutman alternative study, continued improvement to Main Street preferred alternative as the town policy for future enhancement to the town transportation network, and to direct staff to develop an implementation plan for possible consideration of the related recommendations contained within the Troutman alternative study. Mike mentioned at least a couple of those related recommendations during the course of his presentation, and I'll bring those up as matters that, in my opinion, deserve additional attention. The first one is the reconfiguration of the interstate interchange. I've had some preliminary conversations with the State Department of Transportation. I have not gotten any indication from them that they necessarily opposed it, but they feel pretty much like I do that it's worthwhile to conduct some additional study before they would wholeheartedly and fully endorse it. I think that's an element or a component of what I'm referring to is an implementation plan to take this study and look at it as a puzzle and take the puzzle pieces apart and examine the individual puzzle pieces to see what they really mean for us and what they really mean to us. Another auxiliary recommendation that Mike made reference to was the side path that he showed, meandering sort of out of the road right of way, kind of, and snaking through various related nearby communities and neighborhoods in proximity to Main Street. Frankly, I don't know if those particular alignments that he was showing in those aerial photographs are the best ones under current circumstances. And I would like to take a closer look at those and to hone in on those and to really be able to have an opportunity to make a more informed recommendation to the town as to where to go on those. But I'm all in on the preferred alternative, the enhancement of Main Street from Cedar Lane down to the interstate. I think that's spot on.
You're saying Cedar Lane down to Appliance?
Those are the limits that he looked, Cedar down to Appliance, which of course is just past exit 42.
Right. I
Joe?
think you-
Go ahead, Paul, go ahead, finish.
I was gonna say, and my understanding is, we need to make a decision because allocation of funds possibly for that study to the CRPTO is going, you need to have a decision in February. That's gonna, decision to be made there in February. You need some sort of decision from us tonight in order to have a shot at those funds.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. This is good timing, and it is the worst possible timing, and I'll explain why. I got the word about 2 weeks ago that the submittal deadline for the MPO's Metropolitan Transportation Plan is that 10-year plan, it's the 20-year plan for allocation of resources for transportation projects. The deadline was in February. I found out earlier this week the deadline is actually tomorrow. So it's like, I'm glad I got it on for tonight, and if it had gone to March, it would have been too late. What does that mean from a practical standpoint? Virtually the only way that projects are funded through the state is if they are first placed on, in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's the plan that has a 4-year cycle, so it's not like, well, we'll just wait till next year to request it. It's a 4-year cycle, so that's what made me a little bit nervous about missing this particular cycle. At some point in time, our predecessors must have had the foresight to have put into the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or whatever it was called back years ago, the first segment, or segment A of Main Street, and that's how it got to the point where it is now in the state 10-year spending plan. Now, that doesn't make me feel real good because the preliminary state 10-year spending plan, which is in the final stages of being completed and adjusted based on the financial difficulties that the state DOT has found itself in, makes it sound like the first segment of Main Street will probably not get completed until about 2029. So it's still about 8 or 9 years off, when in fact, a year ago today, they were talking about 2023. So that, and literally hundreds of other projects have slid out for a number of years. The good news in this whole thing is, from what I understand, the Houston Flower House Loop intersection, and I think Mike mentioned it on at least 2 different occasions, that only slid or slipped for a couple of years. My understanding is that is still scheduled for construction in 2023, so we only have to wait a couple of years for that one. I know that's a lot of words to answer what you were probably hoping was going to be a simple answer to your question, but I think it's important to look at this in its larger context, and that's what I'm hoping to help you do without confusing it too much.
Jonathan, what, I understand all this, and the gentleman gave us a $23 million price tag on this, okay? To start step 1, okay, to go to this, what you're suggesting tonight, either pro or con, what's going to be the cost to the town of Troutman to do this study?
let me flip this over to that particular slide. Well, when he talks about responsible party, and I apologize, I don't think everybody has a copy of that particular slide. It is contained in the report. In large measure, I think it depends on how this is funded and how clever and creative the town decides to get. There are a number of different funding sources that are potentially available. Some through the state DOT that are 100% funded by the state. There are other funding sources where there's a public, or there's a requirement for a local match from the local jurisdiction. That usually starts at about a 20% match, and then it can go up.
So if we vote for this plan tonight, I'm looking at spending money.
This doesn't have a budget ordinance attached to it. And I think it's way too premature to be talking about exactly how much this would cost the town. You know, it's entirely possible that it wouldn't.
I definitely agree with you, and
Yeah.
I see what your point is, that it's premature. But I'm gonna vote on something that could eventually cost the taxpayers of Troutman a lot of money.
That is a possibility, but given the role of the state DOT in funding projects of this sort, I would say that it's extremely likely that the majority of this would be funded through the state.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point? So Jonathan, let me again ask the question maybe a different way. We've got this study. Is it your recommendation that we not vote on this tonight, that we wait for a implementation plan from you and the staff before we make a decision on any pieces of this study?
I would suggest or request that you consider some sort of endorsement. And I use the word acceptance in here, accepting the continued improvement, the preferred alternative, as something with which you would like to move forward to, which would then give me the power, the authority to enter it into the Metropolitan Transportation Plan for potential funding.
Okay.
The second piece of that is all these other auxiliary recommendations, you know, the improvements to the exit 42 ramp, the side paths, and a variety of other recommendations that are sort of embedded in this report that over which we candidly didn't have time to go through page by page. You know, there's contained in here what I think is a whole variety of different exciting possibilities with regard to making enhancements to the secondary collector system within the town that deserve, number one, deserve additional study. Number two, lack sufficient amount of detail in the report itself to really sink your teeth into, if I can use that term. Number three, something that probably deserves taking a bit of extra time, sort of peeling back the layers of the onion to really see what it means and how it could impact the finances of the town and so on and so forth. So, again, what I would suggest is accepting or endorsing the Main Street concept, which would give me the opportunity to enter it into the system and check the box that says, this has been studied, this has been recommended with the study, which could, in fact, enhance the chances, the way those projects are ranked, of obtaining some kind of funding at some point in time in the future, not next month, not even next year, maybe not even until after that first phase is done. But you've got to start, we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, so I fully agree. I think that's the only piece that I think council needs to understand. Something needs to go to CRTPO. And if it, absent something going to CRTPO, we go to the back burner. And the longer it takes us to get something to CRTPO from a transportation perspective, that bill starts to fall more on us when it comes to, okay, we need to make transportation decisions on what roads look like what. So, again, I'm glad you clarified that at the end there.
And the CRTPO is the bulk of this amounts, if I look at it correctly. It's probably
Yeah, I noticed that on his
about
slide.
7/8 of it or so.
I'm sorry to hear.
I said the CRTPO portion that's spread in here is the bulk of this whole study. So it needs, I guess it needs to be in there.
I had a bit of heartburn, quite candidly, in seeing these. I mean, it's good to have numbers as a starting point, but one of the things this didn't include is, and I think Mike mentioned it, right-of-way acquisition. An earlier version of this didn't include design and engineering expenses. He has subsequently put it in here. The other thing it doesn't take into account is, and I think he's said it elsewhere in the report, in the narrative, these are, November 2020 numbers.
Yeah, that's right.
These aren't the numbers that we're going to be looking at in, 2029 or
Yeah, yeah.
2042 or whenever this gets off the ground. These numbers are going to not go down, they're going to go up.
That's right.
And they did not feel comfortable inflating these numbers to reflect the timeline showing on the left-hand side of that, left-hand side of that table. And I can understand why they would be reluctant to do that.
Well, and the other thing for council's knowledge too, just to remind some of our old council and explain to some of our new council, I will use the Tally Street pedestrian project as the example. The first time that project was put up to CRTPO, it scored a 0, which meant we got no funding because the proper work and the proper etiquette to get that before CRTPO was not done. Even though we needed sidewalks done, the proper work, the time and etiquette was not done. It was a last minute thought and it went down and it scored a 0, which meant we got nothing done. Then, once it scored 0, it was a shock to town and staff and council, and then we come back and we've done the right homework, the right etiquette, we've done the right things, and packaged it up and put a nice bow and sent it back, and then it got properly looked at, and then it got funded, and then it comes back with the formula and the funding that come from the state and the federal process, because when it goes to CRTPO, there is a formula that the federal government gives it so much money, and then the state gives it so much money, and then just like Jonathan was trying to explain, and to Councilman Now's question, this is a $23 million budget, but no, the town's not gonna write that $23 million check. Certain parts of it is 100% funded, certain parts is a 10% match, it just depends. And our planner Jonathan can't tell you in the dark how much it's going to be, because we don't know until we break it down into pieces and say, this is how much this part of the project is, this is how much that is. And just for example, the exit 42 interchange, of course, that's not the town's responsibility, that's the state and that's the federal government, because that's a federal highway system. Even though we would like to see that exit change based off of what Stantec promised, that is a chart of what they would like to see because of the traffic flow. But until Jonathan has something to take to CRTPO, when the mayor and or the other designee shows up down there to say, this is our project, this is how it needs to score, then we're going to get a big 0 because we have nothing in the pipeline. that means our monies that could go for a DOT project is gonna go somewhere else. The part that he was showing there, the pyramid or the diamond, what slide was that, number 10 or 11, that showed the, where Eastway and 21 comes in together? That one.
There,
back
what?
up.
Oh,
No, back
that-
up.
No.
yeah.
That
There
one.
you go.
Right there. That one right there, for example, I don't know where he would have it in there to show you that there's property acquisition that would show us buying that property. I can almost guarantee you that that's not in there, and we've got to buy that property. Who knows how much that property would cost for us to try to buy that property, and I'm sure the property owners out there watching this meeting tonight would say, hey, I'm glad y'all gonna buy my property, nobody's called me and asked me if I'm willing to sell
Right.
it. And that's just a prime example of what I'm saying is part of our plans, and that's theorizing, and no offense, I'm not trying to make light of the project, but that's drawing crayon pictures of saying, this is a pie in the sky of what we would like to do, but realistically, they have to do that so that we've got some idea of what we want to do and what we want our system to look like, so that we can go to CRTPO to say this is the project that we need. Because if we don't have that dream, then we're not gonna get anything. At the end of the day, that's the reality. If we can't put it in the pipeline to have a dream for, then it is not gonna be funded at the end of the day.
Well, and this, I'm glad you brought that up, Ron, because this is a good example of where the state likely would not be paying for the property acquisition for that little park and the
Correct. Absolutely.
landscaping and the other necessary improvements to that. Yeah, they'd spring for the roundabout and the roadway itself, but not these off, what I would call off right-of-way kinds of improvements.
And if I had to be critical, this is one of the things that they put in there that I wish they wouldn't. Because this is something that the town would wind up having to pay for, but somebody out there watching our meeting will come back to us 3 years later and say, what about that park?
Yeah.
They told us we was gonna get a park.
Yeah.
Well, I wish they wouldn't put that in there.
Well, we have a lovely and beautiful park right now.
Absolutely.
So, and it's the centerpiece of Troutman, okay? So if we as the council tonight agree to this plan, I'm agreeing to this Gateway Park,
No, sir, no, sir, this is just,
because I'm totally against a secondary
Yeah.
park.
I agree with you. And this is where I wish they would stay to the facts of the road system and don't tell us to build extra parks, because I don't know that any citizen showed up to those studies and said, y'all need to build finger parks on this
In that
traffic study.
location, yeah.
Because the gentleman mentioned yoga in the park. If we're gonna have yoga in the park, we're gonna have it in our park, our ESC park.
Emily already has it scheduled for yoga in our park.
Yeah.
Jonathan, on page 3 of your section of this, D, what you read earlier, that's what you would like for council to do?
I just am suggesting some kind of action because I know that I knew we were gonna have this conversation, so I
Right.
thought I'd get out a little bit ahead of it and just, suggest some potential wording.
Okay.
Sure.
And if that's the
Okay.
case, I mean, do you want to make a
Yeah,
motion
I'll
based
make
on
that
that?
motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make the motion to accept the Troutman Alternative Study Continued Improvement to Main Street Preferred Alternative as the town policy for future enhancement to the town transportation network, and direct staff to develop an implementation plan for possible consideration of the related recommendations contained within the Troutman Alternative Study.
motion's on the floor, receive the second. Question or comment? Mr. Wyatt?
The only comment I'm gonna say is now that Jonathan and I are involved, we're definitely gonna direct Stan Tech to stay on point of what we're paying them to do and to leave the puffery out. Because we're paying them for a service, we'd like for them to stay on point.
Great. Other question or comment? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Uh,
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to our next item on the agenda, which is consideration for the adoption of ordinance 0121 titled Ordinance to Amend Chapter 18, Section 18.1 of the Town of Troutman Municipal Code regulating use of Town of Troutman ESC Park, Troutman Depot Park, and the Greenway. Ms. Watson.
Thank you, Mayor. You have before you to consider for adoption said ordinance, 01-21. I won't repeat the entire title again. A few changes were made. Number one being the number of officers required at the town in special events. And the other is the section of aviation.
And Mayor,
Looking for consideration of adoption.
we did add that one section that you asked in the wording, at the pre-agenda, if you see that in the packet.
That was the name of that.
Yes.
Okay. Council, is there a motion regarding adoption of ordinance 0121?
I'll make that motion.
I will second that.
Motion is made, received a second. Any other question or comment? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is consideration for the appointment and nomination to fill vacant positions on the Board of Adjustment. First is a appointment of an inside alternate. And second is the nomination of an ETJ member to the Iredell County Commissioners for consideration for appointment. Mr. Wyatt?
Council, you all met the individuals at our pre-agenda meeting the other evening. If you all have any questions or would like any clarification, I'll be glad to address those.
The only question, I just want to make sure, Mr. Oxner would be for the inside alternate?
That is correct.
Okay.
And Lee
We
Geiger
go
would
for
be
the-
the ETJ.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to have two separate motions or just have one?
We can do it all, we can do it all at one. Folks agreeable to that? Okay.
There's no more discussion now. I would like to make a motion then that we appoint Jerry Ochsner as inside alternate to the Board of Adjustment, 2-year term, expiring October 2020. And also Lee Geiger, nominate Lee Geiger to recommend him to the Iredell County Board of Commissioners as an ETJ member of the Board of Adjustment. Thank you. Term expiring June 2020.
Okay, a motion's on the floor for the inside alternate position on the Board of Adjustment and nomination for an ETJ member. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made, received a second. Any question or comment? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Mr. White, I assume the ETJ member will be taken up at the next county board meeting, or
Yes, sir.
we have to wait? Okay, great.
Correct.
All right. Thank you for that. Please send our, again, our appreciation to those two for standing up and willingness to volunteer for those positions.
Yes, sir.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of an appointment to fill the unexpired term of Mr. Ronald Wyatt on the board, ABC board. Mr. Wyatt?
Kim Cavan visited with us at pre-agenda on Monday. You all had an opportunity of meeting her. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be glad to address those. She is recommended by the ABC board.
Okay. Is there any question regarding Ms. Cavan? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make the motion to appoint Kim Cavan to the ABC Board.
Motion's on the floor to appoint Ms. Cavan to the ABC Board. Is there a second? Motion is made, receives a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes.
A YouTube comment from Mike that was on here previously. He said he would be willing to discuss more about it if you just call him back.
About the park? Mike from Stantec?
Yes.
Mhm.
Mike.
Okay. All right.
He wants me to call him back, or does
No.
he want to
He
call?
said he'd be willing to talk with everyone if you had any more questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is elected officials' reports and comments. I'll turn it over to council first. Any comments?
Well, I would like to thank everyone for all, and staff for all the hard work that they've done, and for our manager for the work that he is performing. Thank you very much. Also, Valentine's is coming up this weekend, so I hope everyone has a great Valentine's Day. And I'm going to tell a funny little story, and I'm telling on myself, but it involves J.C. Walker. And so I waited till there was really nobody here. But I know. Many years ago, I was a softball coach, and I had to go pick up one of my players that lived on Kerrigan Road, and I was running late because I got tied up in Statesville, so I, zipped down 77, and then I flew down Eastway, and I was just booking it down Eastway, and I got down almost to the end, and who did I meet? J.C. Walker. So what did I do? I knew, I looked, yeah, he was turning around, so I just pulled over and just waited for him to come. And he came and he said, "Now, Sally, you know you were speeding on this road, yes, and you know you live on this road and you know what the speed limit is. Yes, okay, I expect you to slow down. Okay, thank you." And then I went on my way, picked up my player, and we made it to practice.
May I add to that, Sally, that is karma. I was thinking the same thing. I was on my way to work one morning, very early, going down Eastway, on the shirt mill, and he was sitting in the parking lot, and I was speeding. I was a little late, speeding, trying to get through that Charlotte traffic, blah, blah, blah. When I went by, you did that. And I always told him, I said, I'm gonna put you in for a raise next budget. But that was, but he kind of reminds me of the old Andy Griffith type of policing. You do what you gotta do, but at the same time, you work with people, and he was always good at that, getting along, working with people, and presenting law enforcement as a kind and considerate bunch of people. That could be tough sometimes, as Doug points out, when they need to be. But at the same time, when they don't need to be, they can be kind and generous and understanding and give the warnings as opposed to the tickets and so forth. And but I was thinking that same thing and I didn't tell that for the same reason you probably didn't tell that. Yeah, I'll never forget. That's one of the things I remember about him. Yeah, very much so.
Any other avoiding tickets discussions?
That's been so long ago, I didn't think I'd come back to haunt me.
It's still out there. Any other comments?
I'd just like to say I attended the COGS meeting, the delegate meeting yesterday, and let you know that the budget for this year is, with the assessments, going to stay the same for membership dues of 24 cents per capita or $7.50 minimum, which is what's been for the last couple of years, and the budget was basically the same. So there was not a whole lot of changes, a lot of just budget, delegate overviews and stuff yesterday, and the executive board appointed. We still have Morgan from up at Statesville and Bobby Compton down at Mooresville. So all of us in Statesville, Gene Hout, is also on there. So we're pretty well represented here in the county. The other thing I just want to say, with all the recognitions we did tonight, that it kind of really makes me proud that, I wasn't here for a lot of years, but to be in a town that we recognize all the people we do and tells us how many good people we do have in this town. It's kind of an honor to live in Troutman. And I'm glad that I chose this place to retire to. Even though I was here the first time, wasn't as happy place. But, and I ended up back here years because my daughter came here and I followed my grandchildren. So the other I'd like to say is, Ron and I was talking the other day, and he made a point that kind of stood with me, is that we were talking about how good a staff we do have when you think about all the people they've been through here recently in the last few years of getting new direction, a new way. We've had 3 or 4 town managers, and then sometimes they're kind of left out in the cold. But overall, our staff has really done a good job of keeping this town running and maintaining things, and obviously down there learning a new person's way. So, but they all have a good smile. They always wave when I see them. So I'm just proud that we have such a good staff in this town.
I wanted to echo what Mr. Harris and what Sally said. Thank you, Ron, and your team, Ron, Emily, and everyone, for all the hard work that you do. Reading the reports and seeing all the work that you're all doing, that's just awesome. Thank you again for tonight, for Black History. It means a lot. Being born and raised here, I've never seen this, and I thank you and I appreciate the recognition on tonight. So thank you for that.
Mr. Hinkle, any comments?
Well, I'm just going to kind of segue piggyback on my learned associates, and thank Duck. I can't say Ron. I got to say Duck. I'm sorry. For jumping in and tackling a difficult situation that had become difficult, and he's slowly but surely working it out. And I appreciate it, and I know he's spending a lot of time with the town. Long after the rest of us have gone home and enjoying in the evenings. He's probably still here burning midnight oil, but doing what needs to be done, catch up and so forth. And I appreciate it, the long hours and the dedication. And I think it's representative of what the type of person we were looking for, someone that is dedicated like that is not looking at the clock, but looking at the job that needs to be done. And the fact that we got someone that is an integral part of this community and has been for a long time and doesn't mind doing the hard work, it's most appreciated, and it doesn't go unnoticed. It is being noticed, and we thank you for that. And I look forward to improving situations in our town in terms of management and so forth, and we thank you for that. We have a good staff, a great staff, and they're deserving of a good leader, and we're providing that, and we'll continue to provide that, I'm sure. And I agree. Thank you very much for it, and look forward to working with you for a lot of time, much more time to come.
Mr. Now, any comment?
I'd just like to congratulate all the proclamation to the citizens that we gave them out to tonight. There were some great people that we awarded proclamations to. And I'm just proud, too, that we're able to congratulate and let our citizens know how great a town we have.
Great. Thank you.
I have one question. To our town manager, have you heard whose dog was loose that caused Michelle to fall?
No.
Okay. I just wonder if there had been any follow-up or anything. Do you know?
It had a collar, but it didn't have a tag. It was not chipped. So animal control come to possession of the animal. Unless somebody gives up and claims, we may never know who the owner is.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, to that point, I'm sorry to see that occur, and I, of course, didn't realize when I ran up there to help her that it was that serious of a situation. But hopefully, she'll recover well. And Ms. Sparks, but again, unfortunate incident with that. I couldn't have said it better myself in terms of some of the comments that my council colleagues have said tonight in remembrance of Black History Month. Great job, Ron. Appreciate the recognition. As I said earlier, I don't do this job for recognition or the pay. I enjoy it. It's my hometown, and it's great to see a community that cares. And so I think that's, just important for us to keep in mind, not just now, but throughout the year. And we've got some really, really great people who've been before me and paved the road. But for all of us, they're great role models. And I think for staff, they do a great job and serve our community in a way that they care. And so I think that's a true pillar of our community, especially in times of need, as Ms. Harris has really stepped up in many times. And again, that's why I live here. So again, I appreciate the recognition. I think it's more important for us to continue to care about each other in times of need, and it shows tonight. And I appreciate Chief Walker's daughters being here. I think they really appreciated that too. So thanks for thinking of them, and Emily going out there and showing that care to them. And as they said, it never happened before. Again, first, but I think it's important that we continue to show that. So thank you for doing that. Thanks again for all the hard work of the staff. As has been said, we continue to move forward, and that's noticed and very much appreciated. So thank you all. Mr. White, any comments?
Yes, sir. I would just like to say thank you all for allowing us to do our jobs. My time so far has been the wonderful staff. It's been an acclimation period, but it wouldn't have been as smooth as it has been had it not been for just what Councilman Mr. Harris said. In our discussion briefly, the staff has had a lot of different folks that they've had to work for, but they have been very resilient, and they've been very kind in trying to get acclimated to me. Not so much me, them, but they've gotten acclimated to me. And I'm appreciative of them for being patient while I learn what their systems are and how they have been working. And they have been very kind to be patient with me and learn my style of management. But because they are resilient, we are making progress, and I'm tickled that we have made some strides already together as a team, and look forward to what that's going to look like in the next 3 months, 6 months, and a year, and hope that you all are satisfied with our product as a team, and we look forward to making that even better than what we have done so far. But thank you all very much.
Thank you.
You all did get these here, and if it's okay, I would like the chief to expand on that just briefly.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just wanted to remind everybody that we are hosting a blood drive. It's going to be the 18th. It's going to be right here in the parking lot from 11 to 3:30. There's a lot of benefits to giving blood. We want to reiterate that they have already expressed that they will follow COVID-19 protocol for the safety of our donors. That they will check that giving blood now is really critical during the pandemic, because they can actually use the blood to help individuals who contract the virus. So this is, it's always been a good thing as far as saving lives and helping patients of burn victims, cancer patients, people in accidents and surgeries. It's always been a huge, huge benefit to donate blood. But now we can also use it toward fighting the coronavirus. So this is a good thing. Of course, there's always the health benefits for the individual too. So it's a win-win situation for everybody that's involved. And I am pleased to say that we only have 4 more openings left as far as setting an appointment. So if you've not made your appointment, get online and make your appointment, come out and donate blood for us.
Awesome.
we do need those appointments filled because the donations is critical right now. Also, I would like to point out, Emily had the staff, you all know we have the AED device out here in the lobby. But it was discovered, several of us had let our CPR certifications expire, and that is an ever-changing process. But along with that is basic first aid. So Emily arranged, and we was able to get staff called up and certified. Police officers, of course, already are, and have that through the college. The chief keeps them up to date. Emily made sure to get the rest of us up to date. In the process of that, we hope to open that up to the public and do some training offering our facility so that we can be in what we used to call a good neighbor policy. Emily has a love thy neighbor policy, being it's Valentine's week, and the chief and them came up with this. So please watch out for that as we go forward. And any of you that are interested, or your family, and those of us out there watching our meeting, please stay tuned and get in touch with Emily Watson for that as we go forward. Also, I would like to remind you all, our council retreat is coming up in a couple weeks that will be here. And just a refresher for everybody, while staff will be available, just because of the COVID protocol, we will shuttle them in and out as we need them to make sure that everybody is safe and social distance. If the public has anything, if they want to email us ahead of time, we will try to address it as they watch it. But each department head will have a couple things that they feel needs to be brought to your attention. If you all have anything specific that you would like for us to address, make sure to give us enough notice so that it will be ready and prepared for your pleasure. Thank you very much.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Wyatt? Okay. Great, thank you.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Mr. Harris made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
I got a couple seconds. All those